Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. So, yeah, as mentioned, I want to go over kind of a collection of how I've seen mostly large organizations, but any organization probably, run and think about their developer platforms. And I think what I'm especially interested in studying is these large organizations, the things that, I don't know, we depend on every day: banks, manufacturers, pharmaceutical companies, governments, where I don't know, the worst case scenario of being able to do things in the best way possible seems to always play out. And so whenever I come across one, as I'll go over, where they've figured out something, how to actually do good developer practices, I get very eager about it and like to document it and talk about it. So where does this interest in developer platforms come from? Like, why now? Well, you just saw previously, and there's always platforms that an application developer, the runtime environment that they use. We kind of go through cycles over and over again of perfecting it, and then I don't know what happens. I think maybe people get successful, and then they get bored, and then they leave, and then young people come in, and they just decide to totally rewrite everything. I mean, I don't know, back when I was a developer, the easiest way to start and understand a new project was to completely rewrite it, which seems to happen quite frequently. But I think what we see here, and this is from our recent VMware State of Kubernetes survey, is that as Kubernetes becomes popular as a way to run your cloud-native applications, you can see that the developer productivity, the shortening of release cycles, has been dropping quite a bit. Now, you're not supposed to put small text and things like that on a presentation, but the great thing about it, here's a tip for your presentations, is if your audience can't read your charts, you can tell them exactly what to think, which I will demonstrate right now. And I think that this is not the only metric that you want to use to measure developer productivity, whatever that may be, but it's a pretty good one. The faster you can get software out the door, in general, the better capabilities you have to make good software and perfect it. So I think we're really at the beginning of the mainstream, lots of people using Kubernetes and it being useful, but they're hitting this wall as we get past the early adopters of it, and they're looking for a way to make it better for application developers to use, to not have to worry about the infrastructure. So thankfully, if you look even in the pre-Kubernetes time, if you can believe there was a time like that, there have been many organizations, kind of a handful of them, that have been building these platforms, but more importantly, running them and understanding how to get adoption, how to manage them and grow them. And this is just one example. I mean, if you decide you want to go get some tiny coffee or use the toilet or something, you can leave now and just go check out this presentation from Nadi at JP Morgan Chase, just a big bank. And he really goes over what they've learned over the past 5-7 years and how they're supporting over 1,500 applications globally on following these kind of practices here. Now, I'm not going to highlight all of these, but I'll go through about 7 or so of them to hopefully get you started off on understanding how to be successful with a big platform in an organization. So first of all, or second of all, I guess, here's a little bit about me. I used to be a programmer way back when in the 2000s. That's the last award that I won as a programmer, the FY 2005 Team Innovation Award. I guess my team won it. And I don't know if you get awards like this, but in retrospect, it sure would have been cooler if that was a stack of cash that tall. Because I'm not really sure. That it's nice. It's nice to be awarded with things like that. But I found that in my house back in Austin, Texas, when I visited there recently, and it's a nice little award. But since then, I've moved on to be an industry analyst at a little firm called Red Monk for a while. I worked at another place called 451 Research, and I don't know, some other stuff. I worked at Dell for a couple of years because I lived in Austin at the time, and you have to serve a compulsory 2-year term there if you live in Austin and work in tech. And now I started working at Pivotal and now VMware, really focused on exactly this, studying how large organizations get better at software. And I don't know, if you're interested in more of my inane stuff, it's easy enough to get a hold of. I was told I need to put an S in there so that it's a secure connection. I don't really know why you need to securely connect to my website, but it can be done now. Don't worry if you are worried about that. So I guess the first thing is someone asked me recently what a platform is after talking about this, and it was kind of shocking that I hadn't really defined it. So I went back this morning and I read the Platform Reference Architecture overview from the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, the CNCF, and I realized why I didn't have a good definition. That's because there really isn't one that much, right? The definition that you read is, I've worked in marketing for a while now, and I like to apologize for one way that we do marketing. We're always told in marketing to do outcome-based marketing. Don't talk about the exact technology, talk about the outcome people want to achieve. And so if you look up a definition of a platform, you get a lot of outcome talk, which is fine. And the outcome that a platform is supposed to give you is it's supposed to increase the productivity of developers, allow them to do their daily work with less toil. It's supposed to give them all of the tools that they need to not write the code for their software, but to get it configured and released, to give them the middleware. And increasingly, if you look at ideas of platform engineering and things like that, it also tightly integrates in their build tools, the things that developers use aside from writing the code, the kind of, back when I won that award that was not a stack of cash, the kind of console, if you will, that they look at, the internal website. I always think it's like the descendants of Atlassian, right? Like it's all of that stuff built in there. So if you look at the diagram in the pastel Easter egg colors, that's the CNCF reference architecture diagram. And what you can start to see is that it's something that layers on top of the infrastructure. It has all the ways of doing your, as we used to call it, configuration and release management, describing how your application is packaged up. It has a lot of the, if anyone afterwards, you tell me what the new word for this is that the kids are using, but as we used to call it, middleware. I'm not really sure what you're supposed to say, a service, but middleware. It has all of the middleware integrated into the platform that you would need. And what platform engineering has really brought, I don't know if you heard last year, but DevOps is dead. It's a bit of a zombie now. But what platform engineering has, I think, really brought into the fold here is that idea I was talking about earlier where there's an intranet, the internal, another fuddy-duddy word, but there's like that collaboration software, that UI beyond the IDE that developers use to find documentation, to look at to find the APIs that they use, to have a sense of what projects are there. I mean, if you've seen Spotify talk about Backstage and the numerous other vendors there, it's exactly that, right? Like this collaborative thing that developers use. And all of that is being pulled into what this platform is. Now, we at VMware are fine purveyors of platforms. You can see ours over there. But if you look at any platform out there, it all kind of reduces to the same sort of thing, right? Integrating into your infrastructure, having all of that middleware, the tools that developers use to build their applications and get it deployed, and increasingly, again, whatever we want to call that portal. In fact, that's what you're supposed to call that UI stuff, the collaboration site that developers use, what do they call it? An internal developer portal. But I learned to program back in the days, the 2000s, where we used the word portal. And what you learn is that you don't ever want to use the word portal to describe something, because you're just like 3 to 6 months away from the word portlet, which is really no good. Just don't call things portals. But that has kind of become what it's called, an IDP, or an internal developer portal that people are using. So with that idea of what a platform is, that gives you an idea of the scope and the responsibility and the components that a platform team has, that your organization is setting up to use as their platform. It's what the developers will be using. So I mentioned that you have a platform team. I mean, this is almost, I sometimes forget to mention this, but one of the first things that I see large organizations doing is they don't let the application developers define and work on this platform. I mean, if you think to Mercedes-Benz here, or JP Morgan Chase, or big governments, where you have hundreds, if not maybe a couple thousands of development teams, if each of them is working on their own build chain and their own runtime environment, now you not only have those applications to manage, you have those little one-off platforms that people have, which can be kind of tedious if you're an application developer. I mean, I don't know about in your career, but I think when I was in my early application developer career, the best thing possible was to not actually work on my applications, but to work on generalized infrastructure and a platform. I think all of my friends ended up doing that. And the worst case scenario that happens if you you take over the build, and then you have this weird build kingdom that you've done. But application developers, for some reason, love working on infrastructure. I think it probably has to do with the fact that that means they don't have to talk with the infrastructure people and ask them anything. They can just code around that and not have to worry about talking with other people, which I think probably causes a lot of problems. The infrastructure people are fine. They just want to help out. They might use different words and know how to configure DNS and things like that, but they're totally cool. You can go talk with them. So anyways, this platform team, speaking of the infrastructure team, traditionally, when you manage infrastructure, you follow what was called IT service management or service delivery. If you really enjoy reading deeply into the trough of operation stuff, we had this thing called ITEL, which I don't even remember what it stands for, but it describes this very engineered, almost Baroque set of steps that you go through to deliver infrastructure. But what's happened when I've talked with people who are doing platform teams is they have more of the attitude that Thomas here is talking about. Now, he's the product owner, the product manager of one of the platforms they run in Mercedes-Benz. And what they realize is they're not delivering services or delivering capabilities. They are delivering a product. Whenever you deliver a product, in general, you have a customer. And they realize that the developers are their customers. And so they start to think about what they're doing not as only delivering, uptime or SL, whatever letter you want to put after it, like all of these sorts of things. But they're really thinking about what do application developers need to do? How do we make their work better? How do we think about them as customers, even if they're not paying us because we're all internal here? And that mindset is the first major shift that I see platform teams going through. And it kind of gets over that problem that a lot of application developers have, where they don't like the infrastructure because it doesn't have the functionality. And instead, you have your platform teams always asking how they can help out with that. Now, to that end, so what does it mean to think about your developers as customers? Well, what happens is your operations people, they start to do product management, which thankfully is a very well understood, very highly documented way of thinking about how you develop software, how you study what your users want, you talk with them hopefully, and with the team that you have that's developing a product, you come up with theories of features that would be good for them, what to add to that software, and you prioritize it on your release cycle, whether it's week to week or every 2 weeks, whatever it may be. And you put those features in, and then this is the part we always forgot when I was a developer, you actually see if it was helpful. You observe people using it, and then adjust accordingly, right? So if you think about, this is much different than I've delivered you infrastructure on a yearly basis that has these capabilities and uptime. Instead, in the same way that you would develop a product, an application, you're constantly trying to deliver a better solution to what developers need. Now, one of the primary things that I like to point out is that this, whatever you want to call it, a build pipeline, you can get all fancy and call it a value stream. If you are in marketing for the last couple of years, you would call it a secure software supply chain, which is quite a mouthful. But really, it's all of the activities that happen between thinking about what feature you want in your application and someone actually using it. And one of the things that the platform team is heavily involved in is understanding every single step, not only the boxes, but importantly, the arrows between that, right? And they think about how long it takes to get software out the door. And the platform team may not own all of this, right? A lot of this is outside of their control, but they tend to think about how they can help out with each step here and own it as much as possible. That's why you see these infrastructure-focused teams, these platform teams focusing on the build pipeline and the tools that developers are using, not just providing that blinking cursor of infrastructure and the kind of availability associated with it. So that's a very important thing, right? Like if you're taking on this platform idea, spend some time to talk with various people, and whether it's in online in a Miro board or whatever you use for that, or an actual room, chart out what this all looks like and the time it takes between them. And usually what you find, as one person told me when they did this exercises, you sort of stand back And this often happens the higher up the management chain you are, because you don't really have knowledge of what's going on down there. But you stand back and you say, wow, there's a lot of stupid up there. And kind of most people haven't really seen all the steps that this takes. And so your platform team, just diagramming that out will have a good way to start with. Now, why do I emphasize this? Well, this is just one chart. Here I'm going to demonstrate your PowerPoint tip or Keynote, or if you're like to use Markdown that goes into like some crazy thing, which I can never really figure out. Here's another example of me showing you a chart that you probably can't read too well and don't have enough time to think about, so I'll tell you exactly what to think, establishing my credibility because of charts. But here what I've done is they stopped doing the survey, but this is the State of Agile survey for, I have a philosophy degree, so I can't do math this quick unless it's in like Greek letters. But anyways, it's been around for a while, I think 13, 14 years. And they've asked people about tools usage. And here you have using continuous integration and continuous delivery. I'm never really sure what the difference between delivery and deployment is. It feels like if you've delivered something, you've deployed it. And once you've deployed something, you've delivered it. So whatever, you can pick whichever word you want. But you can see two interesting things happening. One, we've sort of leveled out at build automation, right? That's what the solid bar shows you. It hasn't really improved that much ever, right? Like maybe since the days of like cruise control and Hudson, way back when. But the other thing is there has been some improvement in doing continuous delivery or deployment, right? Like speeding up deploying to production. But, and this is from the last one's from 2021, so maybe we've hit this already. But you can see that like continuous delivery is starting to get on parity with continuous integration. And I don't know how you deploy your software continuously, but I feel like if you haven't automated your build, that's probably not going to work out very well. I mean, I guess you could just like copy files around and things like that. I hear a shocking amount of people who do that. But you kind of see, and this gets, whichever surveys you look at, from the DevOps report to surveys by more conservative places like Forrester, you see that we're very far from having full-on automated builds out there, from having CI/CD out there, which is kind of shocking. So, if you have it, congratulations. If not, the next time you talk to one of your friends who doesn't work at your organization, maybe you can understand why they're so stressed out. But that's a good thing to go look at as a platform team, is never mind all this wacky Kubernetes, YAML, blah, blah, blah stuff. Like, have you automated your build? Because if you haven't, that's a huge improvement that you're going to have, and something, again, that the platform team can help out by focusing on. Now, furthermore, right, if we take on this mindset of this platform team is thinking about application developers as their customers, and they're always looking to improve the experience for the developers. One of the ways to start doing that is this old tool called the survey, right? And what you can do, we made this freely available, a couple years ago now. But this is one of the surveys that we use in our VMware Tanzu Labs group that helps people transform how they do software. Is we send out this developer toil survey when we start working with someone, and then maybe like a 2-week and a 4-week basis, right? To continually see if we're improving what developers are doing. So what the survey does is it asks developers basically rate various things that they do on a scale of 1 to 5, a Likert scale. And you can see, if you can read some of these, that these are questions about the day-to-day life of developers and their feel about how things are going, right? So this gives you, as a platform team, as a product manager, not only an initial list of things to look at, because if you're not familiar with Excel, what you can do is you can get an aggregate of these survey answers, ask on a scale of 1 to 5, and then you can sort ascending. And the ones that are all terrible, that's a good place to start of things to work on. And not only an initial survey does it give you something to look at, but as you ask the survey over and over again, it'll show you if you're improving. You have that feedback in place to let you know that you're focusing on the right things, and developers are getting a lot from the features you're putting in your platform. Now, you might be thinking, surely the developer going to get survey fatigue, right? I get asked surveys in my work, And I don't like answering them. All these apps are always asking me to tell them how they're doing, and I'm not interested in that at all. However, maybe if you're an application developer, you know this, but if you're not, the number one thing application developers do, in addition to write own platforms and infrastructure, frameworks and libraries, they like to complain. This is why developers have to take like 90-minute lunches, right? Because there's a lot of complaining on a daily basis to do. So if you give them the opportunity to officially get paid to complain, I don't know if they're going to answer the survey on a daily basis, but I'm sure they will be happy to fill out the survey and tell you what's wrong. Maybe even they'll automate it and just give a 1 every single time until the overall sentiment is felt. But I'm pretty sure that your developers are not going to for survey fatigue. They'll be thrilled that you're asking them a question or several questions. So again, we're building up this product, right? We start to manage platform and make sure we're solving developer problems. Now, the next problem that comes up very frequently is, so we built this love platform, and these crazy developers, they're not using it. Like they still do their own stuff, they go off and they use some other service, and we made this wonderful thing, and then nothing's happening. And what this typically means is that the platform team hasn't done sufficient, sometimes any, right? I mean, that's even just, you can roll that word around your mouth as a technology person, marketing, right? Does it make you feel good? Probably not. Like most tech people don't really marketing. Like they think it sounds very similar as an scam or something. And that's when we're marketing sometimes, but nothing I've ever done, or the people who have employed me. But what you need to do with the platform team, think about the products out there, like the one that we were seeing previously, some of the other mentions. The technology, even the open source projects that aren't commercialized, they have a tremendous amount of marketing around them. And there's awareness they drive, there's documentation that people put out. There's just going around on a quarterly basis, having a platform advocate, a full-time position to go visit the various sites that you have. Again, I focus mostly on large organizations. They have multiple sites. And you run little conferences, often much smaller than one. But you run conferences to not only talk about the platform itself, but as you get more and more developers and more teams you have those teams talk about how they're using the platform, right? To engage, to give you a tiny marketing lesson, to engage word of mouth, the best form of marketing ever, right? Like here I am, Vmware marketing person. Everything I'm saying is true and helpful, but I'm sure that you'll trust your fellow developers a lot more than what I would say. Maybe not me, but other marketing people. Hopefully I'm on par with the developers. But getting your peers to talk about how they've used your platform and how it's been helpful in your organization is incredibly powerful. And you have to spend a lot of time on marketing and thinking how you're doing it. So finally, how do you roll this out? Well, I think there's 2 phases to how you roll out a platform that I've observed over the years. So the first is the distinct phase where you are doing almost as little as possible, right? So right away when you're starting to develop this platform, you've just gone through the annual finance strategy and finance cycle. You're going to start out with the platform. You pulled up the VMware sales rep and said, let's sign that deal. We're going to put this in place. And then right away what you want to do is identify an actual application development team developers who are going to start using it as you, the platform team, are figuring it out as well. So you're co-developing that platform, because you don't want to make a mistake, one, about how the platform works as you're learning it, or two, how the developers will figure it out, what they struggle with. Most importantly, in your organization, there's going to be all sorts of weird things that you discover. There's always some problem getting a certificate, or I don't know, it's always the network team for some reason, and the compliance team. But you need to have an actual application that you're working on that allows you to really road test that platform and learn how it works and learn how it works in your organization. So you start with 1 or 2 teams, maybe. You start with that marketing I was mentioning, and you start with that product management cycle where you're understanding what developers need and iterating over how to give them those features. So after that phase, after you've figured out a little bit, and this can take anywhere from like 3 to 6 months or so, you've done 2 organization put. But to give you another marketing tip, you've also built up a customer reference. You've built up that proof that your new platform and what you're doing works. And this is extremely important when you go back to your organization. You say, now we need more funding, we should keep doing this, we should bring more and more applications onto this. You want to have proof that it works. And that's why it's important to have that initial project that you have. And then you start to find individuals from those initial teams, and you use this practice that was documented in the DevOps report, and also it's a practice that we've used at Vmware Lab, formerly Pivotal Lab, quite a bit. And you find people from those initial teams, and you move them to the new development teams, so you're helping educate those new teams, and you're spreading viral is a bad word nowadays, but you're kind of exponentially spreading that knowledge out by having developers help each other out. And that's how I see these large organizations over the course of a couple of years really spread out that change. Not only spread the knowledge, but spread the change in the way that people are working. So that's a very quick overview of what a platform is, how I see large organizations put it in place, and if you're interested in more, there's a lot more detail you can find there. And I'll be around. Come visit me at the VMware